hear you. I looked at him in surprise, and he repeated the movement. A disgusting one. You do not understand, he said. Not I replied. Then you are not part of the Brotherhood. How? You are not a Mason. Well, yes, I said. Yes. You? Impossible. A Mason? A Mason, I replied. Show me a sign. It is this, I answered, producing a trowel from beneath the creases of my cloak. You're kidding, he exclaimed, moving back a few paces. But let us reach the Amontillado. So you guys know Mason's conspiracy theory, the whole blah, 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 whatever. But literally a Mason, when you get down to it, instead of as just a secret society, it's a construction worker. You know, they build stuff. As you wish, I replied, replacing the tool under the cloak and again offering him my arm. He leaned on it heavily. We continued our routine in search of the Amontillado. We passed through a range of low arches, descended, passed on, and descending again, arrived at a deep crypt in which the foulness of the air caused our torches to glow rather than flame. At the remote end of the crypt, there was another smaller one. Its walls had been lined with human bones piled to the vault above, like the great catacombs of Paris. 3 sides of this interior crypt were still decorated in this manner. From the 4th, the bones had been thrown down and lay exposed on the earth, forming at one point a sizable mound. Inside this wall, opened by the fallen bones, we noticed another inner space, about 4 feet deep, 3 feet wide, and 6 or 7 feet high. So, not very big. It seemed to have been built for no special use, but only as the middle space between the 2 enormous supports of the roof of the catacombs, and had a back wall of circular, solid granite. In vain, Fortunato lifted his dull torch, trying to spy into the depths of the depressed space, and the feeble light, we could not see its end. Continue, I said. Inside is the Amontillado, and as for Lucchesi, he's an ignoramus, interrupted my friend, as he stepped unsteadily forward, while I followed immediately at his heels. In an instant, he had reached the end of the nook, and finding his progress stopped by the rock, stood stupidly and confused. A moment more, and I had him chained to the granite. In its surface were the 2 iron staples, about 2 feet in distance from each other horizontally. From one of these hung a short chain, from the other a lock. Throwing the chain links around his waist, it took me only a few seconds to lock it. He was too surprised to resist. Pulling out the key, I stepped back from the recess. He just chained him to a wall in a tiny little, area. Pass your hand, I said, over the wall. You cannot help feeling the niter. Indeed, it is very damp. Once more, let me beg you to come back. No? Then I must definitely leave you. But I must first offer you all the little care that I can. I'm definitely tormenting him now. The Amontillado, shouted my friend, not yet recovered from his astonishment. True, I replied, the Amontillado. As I said these words, I busied myself in the pile of bones which I mentioned before. Throwing them aside, I soon uncovered a quantity of building stone and mortar. With these materials and with the aid of my trowel, I began energetically to wall up the entrance of the niche. He's tombing him in, walling him into this place. I'd hardly laid the first layer of my masonry when I discovered that Fortunato's drunkenness had for the most part worn off. The earliest sign of this was a low moaning cry from the depth of the recess. It was not the cry of a drunken man. There was then a long and stubborn silence. I laid the 2nd layer and the 3rd and the 4th, and then I heard the furious shaking of the chain. The noise lasted for several minutes, during which, so that I might listen to it with more satisfaction, I stopped my efforts and sat down upon the bones. He's enjoying this, okay? He's enjoying the torment of poor Fortunato. When at last the clanking died out, I resumed building, and I finished without interruption the 5th, the 6th, and 7th layer. The wall was not nearly level with my chest. I again paused, and holding the torch over the wall, threw a few weak rays on the figure inside. A series of loud and shrill screams bursting suddenly from the throat of the chained figure seemed to throw me violently back. For a brief moment I hesitated. I trembled. Pulling out my sword from its sheath, I began to grope with it inside the recess, but instantly a thought reassured me. I placed my hand upon the solid walls of the catacombs and was satisfied. He realizes there's no way that guy's getting out. I again approached the wall. I replied to the yells of him who screamed. I echoed him. I helped him. I screamed louder and stronger than he. I did this, and the screaming grew still. Okay, Montresor is a little crazy. Like, he's yelling back and mimicking poor Fortunato, who is scared for his life, as he should be. It was now midnight, and my task was coming to a close. I had completed the 8th, the 9th, and the 10th layer. I had finished a section of the last and the 11th. Only a single stone was left to fit and plaster in. I struggled with its weight. I placed it partially in position. But now there came out of the niche a low laugh that lifted the hairs on my head. It was followed by a sad voice, which I had difficulty recognizing as that of the noble Fortunato. And the voice said, "Ah, ha, 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 he, a very good joke indeed. An excellent joke. We'll have many a rich laugh about it at the palazzo. He, over our wine. Ha, ha, ha." "The Amontillado," I said. He, ho, 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 ha, ha, ha. "Yes, the Amontillado. But is it not getting late? Won't they be waiting for us at the palazzo? The Lady Fortunato and the rest? Let us go." "Yes," I said, "let us go." "For the love of God, Montresor." "Yes," I said, "for the love of God." But to these words I listened in vain for an answer. I became impatient. I called aloud, "Fortunato." No answer. I called again, "Fortunato." No answer still. I think Fortunato's pretty much given up at this point. I thrust a torch through the remaining opening and let it fall inside. Only a jingling of the bells answered. My heart grew sick because of the dampness of the catacombs, not because he feels guilty, obviously. I hurried to finish my work. I forced the last stone into its place. I plastered it up. Against the new masonry, I piled the old wall of bones. For half a century, no living person has disturbed them. Rest in peace. So he got his revenge. Poor guy. Don't even know what he actually did. All right, so that's my little short story this time around. In a few weeks, I will read you another one. And, just keep the creepiness of Miss Mumford's, classroom alive. All right, see you later.